Lee Summit is easily one of the most popular suburbs in the Kansas City area on the Missouri side. You've got phenomenal schools, lakes surrounding the city. The growth is incredible. A lot of people are moving in, and as a result, you've got a lot of development and new construction. So in this video, we're going to break down some major questions and things to think about when trying to decide where to buy or build a home in Lee Summit. We're also going to break down the major difference in home prices between older homes and brand new construction homes. Now, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you a couple examples of what your money can buy you in many different price brackets, including new construction homes under $500,000. Part number one is all about history. And the reason we're covering this first is because it influences everything you decide about where to live in the city. It influences how new the homes are, whether you have amenities in your neighborhood, the cost of those homes, and of course, how close you are to downtown Lee Summit. So just to give you some context, here's what that looks like compared to the rest of the Kansas City metro area. Everything that's a warmer color, so your reds, your oranges, your yellows, those are older homes around the city. It looks like the number of older homes in the city is very small compared to Kansas City, Missouri, downtown Kansas City, and some older parts of Johnson County on the Kansas side. You'll notice all of those darker green colors indicating newer homes, with the typical home in Lee Summit being built around the 1990s. And even today, as you drive around the city, downtown Lee Summit has a lot of character, it's got a lot of charm, and the reason the city's developed this way is because of the railroad. It was the highest point on the railroad between Kansas City and St. Louis, and that's why it initially developed. But as you can see based on this graph showing the explosive population growth, a lot of this picked up in the 60s, 70s, 80s as major roads and highways eventually connect Kansas City, Missouri to the city of Lee Summit. Now, part number two is all about where to live in Lee Summit. So we're going to dive into the map here in a second. I'm going to show you the different things to think about, and I've really got 4 questions you should ask before deciding where to look for homes or the price range that you're trying to look for, because there's a big difference depending on how you answer these 4 things. The first major question you should ask is, do you want to live on or around the corner from a lake? In which lake do you want to live near? Now, this is usually not a question you have to answer when it comes to buying a home somewhere in the Kansas City area, but in Lee Summit it is. And it's not like we're just talking about 1 or 2 or 3. We're talking about several different lakes to choose from. So if we dive into the map here, you've got Lakewood Lakes up top. You got Longview Lake, you've got Raintree right here. I really like Raintree, and we'll talk about that in a second. Lake Winnebago, which is a different city, but still it feeds into the Lee Summit School District, so a lot of people kind of classify these as like the Lee Summit area. Greenwood, Missouri is another one. That's a smaller city just outside of Lee Summit. Most of it feeds into the school district. You got Lake Lotawana, which is a separate city, but still kind of feeds into that school district. And then you've got Lake Giacomo and Blue Springs Lake up here. So those are clearly a lot of choices to make. It's like, do you want to live on the lake? Because that's very different than living, maybe around downtown in Lee Summit and just being like 10 minutes away from the lake. 2 entirely different experiences. So the first question is, do you want to live on the lake? And the second question is, which lake do you want to live on? So like some of these are private, some of them are public. For example, like Raintree Lake down here, you got home prices anywhere from $350,000 all the way up to over $1 million. But this is a private lake. It is absolutely beautiful. If you drive by it in the spring or summer or even the fall, it is stunning. But some of these lakes, for example, Lake Giacomo up here, this is a public lake, right? So anybody can go there. So the major question is, how close do you want to live to them and which one do you want to live near? Keep in mind that from top to bottom in Lee Summit, all the way up here, all the way down here is about a 20-25 minute drive. So no matter where you live in Lee Summit, you've got quick access. You're in a quick vicinity to any of these. If this is your first time seeing these videos, then welcome to the channel. My name is Massa. I'm a local real estate agent licensed in Kansas and Missouri. Everything that we're talking about in this video, these are discussions that I've had with a lot of my clients who are looking for homes to purchase or build in the city of Lee Summit. We'd absolutely love to support you if you're in the same spot and thinking about relocating or just trying to find the right place in Lee Summit to call your new home. So all of my contact info is in the description. If you think we'd be a good fit and work well together, give me a call, text, or email. I'd love to hear from you. The second question is, in the neighborhood that you buy a home in or you live in, do you want amenities? And this has become more of an expectation, especially with new home communities, is that you should get a pool, you should get a playground for the kids, you should get walking trails throughout the community. But this is also the case with some pre-existing communities around Lee Summit. Now, this is also why I showed you the history of Lee Summit in the beginning of this video, because around the 1990s and onwards, we saw this in Overland Park as well. That's when they started putting amenities into a lot of these communities. So I'm going to give you 3 just as good examples in different parts of the city to keep your eye on. The first one is Weichert. They've been building out here for a very long time. I think last year around this time, they opened up a brand new phase of lots that you could purchase and build a brand new home on. However, you will find some older homes that were built in the early 2000s, the late 90s, that if you live in that community, you've got access to several community pools in each different neighborhood of the community. They've got a wide host of different trails all leading in different directions around the neighborhood. You got tennis courts, like 6 playgrounds throughout the community. Like, this is a massive advantage and a massive value add if you do have kids and you don't want to have to drive far away in order to access some of those amenities. The second example would be Lakewood, which is in the northern corner of Lee Summit. It truly seems like living in a resort. Not only do you have the lake, you've got rentals that you can take out on the lake. You've also got the golf course there. You've got the Lakewood pools, the playgrounds, the athletic facilities, and the tennis courts. You can go fishing. You've got the swim beach there. There's just so much to do. And the final one that I want to highlight is down in the southern part of Lee Summit. It's right next to Lake Winnebago. You've got Raintree Lake, which is one of the private lakes in Lee Summit. They've got plenty of docks, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, different swim beaches, and of course trails throughout the community. The third question to ask is how close you want to be to the major shops, restaurants, and entertainment spots in Lee Summit. So if you look at the city, we already talked about how top to bottom, we're talking about like a 20-25 minute drive. It's not that big of a city, so no matter where you live, no matter where that concentration of shops, restaurants, etc. is, you're probably only 10 to 15 minutes away. But if I erase all of that, just to show you where like most of them are, you've got some scattered throughout, but most shops, restaurants, etc., including downtown Lee Summit, you got 470, you got Highway 50, you've also got 291, which leads right up to 470. So you will see quite a few shops and restaurants, etc., up and down the highway. That's because it connects you to Independence and Blue Springs. But for the most part, everything's within this circle right here. For example, you've got downtown Lee Summit right around here. You got Summit Fair, Summit Woods right alongside the highway. And then where most new home communities in the city are, just to give you an example of where a lot of that new development is, right down Pryor Road. So you've got several examples of new home communities that we've covered on other videos on this channel, which I will leave down in the description below. But if you're in one of those newer communities, you're guaranteed those amenities. You're also most likely going to be pretty close to all the shops, restaurants, etc., less than 10 minutes away. Of course, the further outside of the city we go, like a Lake Lotawana, a Greenwood, a Winnebago, even if we go somewhere around Lake Giacomo, etc., that's going to put you maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes at most. Now, that's another reason why we started with the map showing the age of homes in Lee Summit. You'll notice that where those older homes are, that's where most of the shops, restaurants, etc. are throughout the city. Of course, that will probably change over the next couple decades because the population is just exploding, but that leads us to the final question is, are you looking for a pre-existing and older home? Which typically these days, if we're talking anything over 400, typically you're going to have 3 fully finished levels. You're going to have a lot of space throughout the home, but it can really depend on the part of town that you're looking in. So are you going after a pre-existing home or are you going after new construction? Because what you'll notice throughout the city of Lee Summit is you've got quite a few options when it comes to Lee Summit. There are some more affordable price points that you can hit compared to the rest of the Kansas City metro area. So the next part of the video is all about pre-existing or resale homes. The typical home price for an older home in Lee Summit, so it's just not new construction, is around the upper 300,000s. As you can see by this chart, they take about 3 to 14 days to sell, of course, depending on the time of year, what's happening with mortgage rates, etc. And if you look at this picture that shows how much they're selling over the asking price, you'll notice that in 2023, which is when this data is from, they typically sold for around 101, at times 102, 103% of the asking price, which indicates how popular the city is, how fast these homes are going. Now, you will see a lot of different types of houses throughout Lee Summit. For example, you'll see a good share of split levels, kind of like this one. It's 5 beds, 2.5 baths, 2,200 square feet, and priced at $360,000. But you'll notice you've got those tall ceilings throughout. It's fairly updated. In a home in that price range, and pretty much anything below 500 will typically not fall in a community that does have those amenities like we talked about earlier in the video. Now, just to give you an example of what one of those homes would look like, here's an example of one in Lakewood in the northeast corner of Lee Summit that does have those amenities. $625,000. You got 4 beds, 4.5 baths, and 4,000 square feet. Which, again, that's my point about anything over 500. Typically, all 3 floors are going to be finished. It's going to be anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 square feet, pretty much over 3,000 square feet at a bare minimum. So if you need a lot of size, that's something that you'll easily find in Lee Summit. Now, the final example that I want to show you, here's what it looks like. It's in Winterset Valley, which is another community that we highlighted that does have those amenities. Priced at $720,000, 5 beds, 4.5 baths, 4,700 square feet, so it's huge. It's built in 2008, on a third of an acre lot with those soaring 2-story ceilings and the massive wall of windows in that living room. Now, even though those pre-existing homes in Lee Summit are selling very quickly and oftentimes over the asking price, there are so many different styles, sizes, price points, locations around Lee Summit to choose from. And the same thing is true when it comes to new construction. So the next 2 parts of the video, we're going to break down into 2 different categories. If you look around the Kansas City area at new construction, the lowest price is typically somewhere around $500,000. And we're talking a home that's over 2,000 square feet, a standalone single family home that's on probably, let's say, a fifth of an acre of land, if not more than that. It's typically what you'll find the lowest price of new construction at, which is $500,000. We're going to break this down into 2 separate parts. At all the new homes above $500,000, and then all of the new homes below $500,000, which are possible to find in Lee Summit. So here's a chart that shows the median sale price of new homes in the city. You can see it bounces anywhere from $500,000 all the way up to $600,000. But I would say we probably want to adjust this to $550,000 to $600,000, and that's typically the price that you'll see in Lee Summit. Of course, there is going to be a difference between your homes that are 3,000 square feet plus. Anything around $600,000 is likely going to be below 3,000 square feet, or around like 3,100 if that. And also, we have to account for the difference between building a custom home from the ground up versus purchasing a spec home or a home that's already under construction where the builder's already chosen the plans, and the pricing is based on market value instead of building a home from the ground up, which is based on production cost. And that's not to say that you can't build a home for around $600,000. You certainly could. You could build it for less than that, as I'm about to show you in a second. It's just that it becomes less likely that you'll be able to hit that price range because, when you build a home from the ground up, likely that means we're choosing the countertops, we're choosing the flooring, the tile, and oftentimes some of those upgrades and selections can spiral really, really quickly. So the last little caveat is if you're looking for something over 3,000 square feet, let's say you've got a big family, you want all 3 floors of the home finished, you're looking at a 2-story, 1.5 story, you really want that basement finished, we're probably talking somewhere around $700,000, probably a little bit more than that, depending on the size of the lot, the level of finishes inside of the home, etc. So here's one example from a really popular new home community, just about 8 minutes away from downtown Lee Summit. This was built by Newmark Homes, 4 beds, 3.5 baths, around 2,600 square feet, super tall ceilings. I love how many windows they put in there. I also like the double-sided fireplace, which is a really nice touch. This is what you can get for below $600,000, which again, if you were to compare that to other suburbs around the Kansas City area, that seems like an absolute steal. Now, when it comes to buying a new construction home in Lee Summit under $500,000, you do have a couple different options. And that's true of single family homes. I'm even seeing a couple townhomes. I'm seeing some double-sided villas go up. This is all just to adjust to home prices and affordability, some of the major challenges that we're seeing in the housing market today. So a good builder will look at, they have multiple different communities, multiple different locations around Lee Summit, the rest of Kansas City, where you can build in this more affordable price point between the mid 300s and maybe the mid 500s is Clover and Hive and Summit Homes. And they're basically the same company, but they have 2 different product offerings. Clover and Hive, they've got smaller homes that are typically under 2,500 square feet. Some of them are under 2,000 square feet, but they'll typically be able to get you in that $350,000 to $450,000 price range, if not up to $500,000. And then Summit Homes builds homes anywhere from the mid 400s. I've seen them all the way up to over $900,000. It just depends where they're building and the level of finishes they're putting in and the size of home that they're building. But those are 2 that I'd start at. Like I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of double-sided villas, a lot of duplexes going in, various pockets around the city of Lee Summit. And while a shared wall isn't for everybody, it is brand new construction, and you're still getting those amenities that most people want and are looking for in a community, like the pool, the trails, the playground, all the good stuff. Now, I do want to show you one example. This is from Summit Homes. It's priced at $430,000, which is the base price. 4 beds, 3.5 baths, 2,300 square feet. And this would be another example where if you're starting from the foundation stage and up, where you're the one choosing selections, this is where the prices can start to add up, right? As you upgrade or you make your own selections, you switch out the base carpet for the upgraded carpet with a thicker pad, right? All of that stuff adds up. So while it is possible to get in this price range, it does come with a caveat, which is you gotta be careful because all of those upgrades can spiral out of control really quickly. And if you have any questions about buying or building a new home or a pre-existing home in the city of Lee Summit, we would absolutely love to help. If you feel like we'd be a good fit, all of my contact information is located down below in the description. You can call, text, email. We'd love to help you out. In the meantime, you can go watch this video that YouTube thinks you would enjoy the most, or this playlist with all my videos about Lee Summit, from different neighborhoods, why people want to move there, the different new home communities. So click either here or here, and I'll see you on the other side.